It's time for the Nerd Log. It's Thursday. It's the middle of the day on the West Coast, and I think we might be live. We say live now. That's looking pretty good. And there it is. My beautiful visage on the top right of a thing. So we've got a co-host. We've got two guests. We've got a lovely segment starting up. How about we have Aisha Blake say hi? Aisha, say hi to the people. Tell them what you do for New Relic.
Absolutely. Hello to the people. My name is Aisha Blake. I am a senior developer relations engineer for New Relic. I stream as Aisha Codes on Twitch, and I I am just a friend. I'm a friendly person. That's most of my job, really.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I believe your name is Elvish for friends, so there you go.
Exactly.
And we've got two people here from the Logs team. Rebecca, why don't you say hi to the people? Tell them what you do for New Relic.
Hello, I'm Rebecca. I am a product manager for the logging team, primarily focused on the logging UI. And a fun fact about me, I used to be an engineer on the logging team.
So you are really focused on that like user experience piece.
Yes, exactly. I love talking to customers, hearing from them. Um, yeah.
Yeah, this is the fascinating part of that people really don't tell you about. Audio. No, we're good. Shh. Live stream. That's okay. I muted it. We're good. This is the fascinating part people don't tell you about doing product engineering at almost any organization is that you really don't interact with like the customer. And here I'll tell a story about myself because that's what you do when you're the host of a show. You steer the conversation back around to funny anecdotes. I once worked for 3 months on a phone routing system for the company I was working for. Holding all the interface, the call transfer, call. And then I said one day at lunch, we're having like coming to lunch, I said, do people call us at this company? And if so, why? Like, what does this system do? Okay, that's enough about myself. Skyler, say hi to the people, our other guests. Tell them what you do for New Relic.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Skyler. I work on the logging team as a designer, and I work really closely with Rebecca and her team. Yeah, I've been at New Relic for 8 months now, and it's been an amazing journey so far.
How's it? Yeah, how's it going? You think you got another 3 months in you, or
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. It's been really fun. Rebecca and the team has been really supportive, and I love working with all the engineers on the team.
I love that. Our feed looks so good today. I've been fighting for more pixels for the feed. I want my face to be bigger than ever, of course. And this layout really looks really like we gotta save this. Producer Rachel's on the show, and this looks really great. So let's talk about getting user feedback a little bit. So logs is sort of a new. I mean, now it's been going on for a while, but it's a new direction for New Relic. It's outside of the sort of traditional performance metrics. And in some ways, when I started at New Relic, whatever it was 18 months ago, logs felt like there was sort of this bolted on piece where, you're sort of doing your normal stuff and then you clicked a big button that said logs and you got taken over into like a logs interface. It's evolved a lot from then, but then user feedback is a big part of it. Rebecca, can you talk a little bit about sort of how you even connect with users to get that kind of feedback?
Yeah. So we're really lucky because we have some pretty vocal users, and we have like a great sales team who like shares feedback very regularly. We have like a couple of Slack channels, one specifically for sales reps to give us feedback that they're hearing, and one for customers to give us feedback directly. And so for the Slack channel for customers, like that's like actually a part of our UI where you just can like type in feedback in the moment, and it's all piped into a Slack channel. And we actually look at it and create tickets based on it, and then reach out to customers if we need more information.
I really, really like that. And something that always kind of interested me about getting that kind of feedback is, especially when I was working in tech support, is how I got my start in the tech industry. I used to worry a little bit that I was kind of I was passing on feedback, but it was the feedback from like the loudest customer. It wasn't necessarily the feedback from the most common customer or what have you. And I've seen product that like didn't work well. And when you dived into it, you just really got a sense of like, not usually that they had like one user who complained a lot, but often they have like one enterprise customer that they really, really cared about. And that the product sort of shifted to be the thing that customer wanted and not what everybody wanted. So a connection with sales is really critical there because sales has more of a sense, like they can weight correctly, right? Like they can say, hey, you know, all five of our biggest customers, they all want this feature, right? And so that part is kind of key. So Skyler, how does that feel to get feedback on maybe a design that you've helped implement, or is that tough to hear? Is it like, oh, I thought this was going to give people a better experience?
Yeah, that's a great insight. I think that the customer feedback is just one way of receiving feedback. We try to reach out to a lot more of folks who may not have used New Relic in the past too, and understand their pain points and their journeys and how we can improve the product to work with everybody, not just one specific client or person, or like you said, the loudest voice in the room. We really want to bring in more inclusive feedback and making sure that we are listening to everybody and trying to make a product that scales, not just for one person, but many.
Yeah. An interesting thing when I was training new tech support people is that they occasionally get, you know, really vociferous feedback, and I would say, yeah, don't send that on. I was like, why? It's like, well, you know, they're giving it to you as if they're not going to use the product if we don't implement this feature. But keep in mind, this guy, you know, I'm pointing out this name, he emails us every day. His whole job is New Relic at this other enterprise, right? He's not going to stop using New Relic. Like if we get good feedback that's actionable and useful, and hey, I wish it were like this, great. But if it's like, hey, please re-engineer this product, and by the way, I use you every single day. You know, like, well, are you going to come back and eat at the restaurant tomorrow? I am, but I still want this to be there. It's like, well, see you tomorrow. I'll see. So finding, you know, this thing that is sort of the unicorn to hunt for is like, what are the needs of the non-user? What are the needs of a person? And I'm sure, Rebecca, you probably have experiences with like, it's like gold to like look at somebody who's not used it before, and as they explore into it and what they see.
Yeah. And like Skyler's also really good at this, like taking users and like giving them a task, like for users of logs, not necessarily users of New Relic, giving them a task and like just seeing like how they can if they can complete it, how they complete it. And we actually did something like this last week. Skyler, you want to talk more about it?
Oh yeah, yes,
yeah, sure, yeah. We the past few weeks actually, we've been running some more unmoderated tests, and then also some other generative research kind of questions where we're trying to understand the journey for people who may not be using New Relic or who are outside of New Relic using a different product, and understand their process in trying to troubleshoot an issue, from receiving an alert to how they're actually fixing the issue at the end, and figuring out where those major pain points are and how we can do a better job at New Relic to address those. Not just
what is an
log.
unmoderated test? I'm super curious.
Oh, yeah, sure. So unmoderated tests would be like what Rebecca was saying. We give them a script, a task, and have them run through a prototype or a design, or even our current product, and seeing how they can complete the task. And there's different ways to measure that, like by speed, where they may be getting hung up on, whether it's for logs specifically, it could be querying. They're having trouble understanding the syntax or something like that. How can we make that a better experience so they can query their logs in a way that's a little bit more effective and that they understand to find that piece of information they're looking for?
Yeah, you know, a piece that really fascinates me working in such a mature product as New Relic, and this is the part that's like not like any other place I've worked, is the number of times you go to talk to somebody who says, you know, oh, I have concerns about the product. I really wanted to do this, this, and this. And my response is, yeah, it does that already. Like we already have that. And so, I mean, and that really is, like either it's documentation or user experience, like this is a failure, right? I mean,
Mhm.
thankfully it's relatively a small failure when it's a big valuable customer, because you usually have solutions architects and stuff to go in and say, okay, just come over and use it like this, and I'll train you. I'll bring the bagels. Don't worry, I'll show you. But we want people to, of course, to be able to use New Relic on their own. So if people are discovering a feature that we in fact have and have done all the engineering work to do, that's troublesome. I think that may take us to, I think we were talking about something like this in rehearsal, where it was like people weren't discovering something that in fact was there.
Yeah. We recently went through like a bunch of the feedback that we've gotten, and we're like, okay, we're gonna focus on like addressing like these like small low-hanging fruits that we're getting consistently. And one of them was people would like ask for features, and we'd be like, we have this, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah. Do we want to start up the screen share and look at kind of an example of that?
Yeah.
Skyler, pull the lever. Yes. Yes.
Oh.
Now give me like one step, well, 2 steps of zoom in and enhance.
Okay.
1, 2, yes. There we go. Perfect. Love it. Text to the edge of the screen. That's what I need. I actually like, for those who are super fascinated with my process of streaming, I have a Twitch stream that's streaming at 480p on the other window. So it's like, it gives an incredibly grainy view. And if I can like make sense of it there, then I know that like most people are able to see it on the stream, which is what we need. Okay, so sorry, you were saying, like I cut you off. We talked about zooming.
Yeah, so we used to have like a little like 3-button menu right here, and like almost everything in this list was hidden behind that 3-button menu. And we get like feedback that they're like, oh, I really wish that I could create an alert condition from logs. And I'm like, you can. And like, this is one of my favorite features, because like you can just like, type in something like get a query, and you're like, if this ever happens, I want to be alerted about it. And you don't have to go to the alerts UI and remember what you are querying. You can just like immediately create an alert condition. And when we would like do calls with people and they would say, I wish I could do this, I would be like, you can. And they're like, oh, wow, that's so cool. I wish I knew. And so we realized we can't just hide everything behind the 3-button menu on the side.
This is a tough thing with sort of any analytics dashboard, is that you want to be presenting information to people mostly, right? Like you want to take most of the space to say, here's the actual performance information that you have. But you also want people to know that you can do more than that, And so like the extreme is like, like the Kanban board that's like, you just see these little cards and you have to figure out how to do everything, like you don't know where any of the features are. And that doesn't work that well. Most people don't know that many of the features exist. So can we see like creating an alert condition? I'm just curious about this. Like Daniel in a previous segment did show it a little bit. He just sort of created one off, but I have not done it. So I would love to see it.
Yeah.
No, this is what we talked about in rehearsal. This is the game.
We're going off book.
Yeah.
That's fine. All I have to do is like have something in the query bar. And let's say like every time there's like a disconnect. And you're like, okay,
yeah, so it's going to be based on the number of logs that match this search. Yeah. So probably just we are logging is not a good reason to send an alert. So we want to add something like disconnect.
Yeah. And we can see like it usually like hovers around like 7 logs. That's usually the max. So I can go create an alert condition. It keeps the query. I'm gonna name it like Tower Seattle disconnect.
Or name it Nika forced me to do this live on whichever name works better for you.
Nika.
So one of the things I really encourage people to try out this interface, because I love how well it explains what is going to happen with an alert threshold, where it highlights the whole chart to say, hey, right now with the threshold you have set, here's what's going to happen, and you can scroll
You're
down
gonna
and turn.
you're gonna be constantly alerted.
Yeah.
So you can say like, okay, if it returns like above, it was like about 7. So I guess if it's like above 8 for 5 minutes, then okay, you're still gonna be.
Oh, this is on its query, whatever its query settings are, right? It's detecting quite a few more, so we'd have to set the threshold to like 30.
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, you would be alerted a little bit.
This is this piece that I do emphasize people think about a little bit, is that we have an alert threshold. It's not just, it goes over at once. It's for this amount of time. So a single time slice, a single moment in time where there are 11 of these, it's not going to alert until that keeps happening for a few spans of time.
Yeah. And there's like a ton of different things you can do. You can change the kinds of alerts. You can fine tune all your signals.
Yeah.
There's like a ton of configurations, and then you just select a policy. I'm not going to actually do that because I don't want anyone to get an alert and be like, "What happened?"
Yeah.
And
hopefully,
even more settings.
Demo environment. Hopefully, nobody's getting woken up by environment. But yeah, and I know that also it's not just here. We're not going to look at it here, but you can also do anomaly detection of logs. So that's using an AI system to say, hey, this particular query does come back very frequently. You can feed it in as a signal, but we're not going to look at that today. But it's just something to sort of keep in your mind that it is available if you're willing to do some advanced fun stuff.
Yeah. Another thing that we did based on feedback is, and it's kind of hard to tell now because it's so zoomed in, but we got a lot of feedback that there wasn't enough information density. And that was hard to figure out because we're like, okay, on one hand, people want to like be able to see all the features we have available, but on the other hand, they want like the maximum amount of screen real estate for logs.
It's almost like they ask you for a smaller text size on everything, right? Like, more density, but we also want buttons that represent everything. And I do see, Skyler, I noticed this challenge that I know so well from designing like engineering interfaces where everything ends up having a gear for an icon. Where it's like, what is it? Drop filters, parsing, data partitions? Yeah, those are all gears. What do you want me to say?
Yeah, that was an interesting one that we hopefully will update to make it a little bit more clear eventually. This is also like for a specific type of user, the managed data section, for some folks who are in here and actually trying to set up some of these items like drop filters, parsing, and data partitions. But yeah, back to Rebecca's point, it seems like we found that we have two different types of preferences between users, and some folks, depending on what they're troubleshooting, just want to see a lot of logs at the same time. So that's kind of what the expand table does there. Whereas other folks just want to be able to scan things for like errors and things like that, see how things are tracking. Let's say they just set up an application and just want to see how the logs are coming in and if it's throwing any errors and things like that. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's funny because the expand table view definitely reminds me of like what I am normally doing with logs, right? It's like, I start out with like a visual scan and even ask these things like, do all the logs get shorter in this time period or something, right? Look for these very, very gross patterns. And that's sort of what we're all used to doing with logs. And it is kind of a funny thing, like, you set your logs to an analytics service. So, if you just wanted to scan through a bunch of logs, you want to like scan through a log table or just throw regex at it and see what you found, throw like unique at your logs or something to see like what the pattern is, then maybe an analytics service isn't quite right. So this is another thing about feedback, I guess, is like with feedback, you have to see if someone's trying to make your product go be something else that it's really not. Like you have to make sure it's like, hey, like we can do all these statistics on your logs and we want to show that to you first, right? Because hopefully you will learn to use that as part of your process.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rebecca.
I was gonna say, like, we do get like a lot of feedback that people want to do more like advanced queries here in the logs UI. And like something we need to figure out is like, okay, like we want to help with that, but we also have like this great dashboards product. Like, should we rebuild the dashboards product ourselves in the logs UI? Like, that doesn't make that much sense.
Oh, this is like the tough question. And I for sure encourage you, if you're looking at this, I guess we're going to talk about this in a minute, is like how to start getting logs into New Relic. But if you do start sending in logs and you see stuff right away, you're like, oh, I wish it worked like this. Especially, I mean, I love feedback. Hey, I know I made a joke earlier about maybe not listening to a single user's feedback, but I love hearing feedback. But I would say, hey, if you used it for a week, you're feeling like, okay, I'm familiar with how this works, and you have feedback, you should let us know. Like, support at newrelic.com is one of many places to just drop that as like an email, say, hey, I wish it worked like this. Go look us up on Twitter. We're all in the Twitter thread, and you'll see links down below in the YouTube. But I would love to hear, if you're like, hey, I wish the product worked this way, we would love to hear about it. But yeah, that does give me this question, Rick and Skyler, for either of you, is like, how do you start getting logs just into New Relic?
Yeah, so the way that I would recommend it is, if you never sent logs anywhere before, would be to install the infra agent, because that's pretty simple. You just run a command in your command line. It says, like, do you want logs enabled, yes or no? You hit yes, and then you have logs flowing, which is really nice.
Yeah, that's so the infrastructure agent is this really nice, very lightweight sort of consumer of logs, among also with monitoring your infrastructure. And while you absolutely you can like send logs yourself, and you can set up a logs output. Once you start to dive into the little things that the infrastructure agent does for you, like collection cycles and like not blocking other file requests and stuff, it's like, yeah, it might be nice to just use the New Relic agent. Again, if you have some funny thing, if you have a robot vacuum that's sending logs and you want to pipe them to New Relic, like, great, like, go ahead and use a DIY solution. But the infrastructure agent is a great place to start.
Yeah, but also, like, if you already have logging set up, we do have plugins for most common logging forwarders.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're already using a log forwarder, you're really happy with how it works and how it collects to some other endpoint, that we should have an adapter for you. Yeah. If you don't see yours, again, do get in touch with us, because we're either going to make one, or probably are going to be able to point you to where we actually do have one on GitHub somewhere. So what else do we want to see in the logs UI? Are there other cool new features you want to feature for us?
I don't know, Skyler. I want to show logs in context, and I want to talk about data partitions. What do you think?
Let's look at logs in context first. So this is kind of a key thing. This thing I was mentioning at the beginning is, like, I love that we have a great interface to look at logs, and especially to look at charted patterns for logs. But the real superpower for me is the ability to say, a concept that's always running through New Relic is that we have errors and transactions and other stuff, and being able to say, would you like to see the logs that were associated with this request? So we're just bopping through the APM interface here to just sort of get to a single transaction, be that an error transaction or just a single transaction which has some parameters on it.
Yeah. So we have this like JSON parser error. Here's a stack trace. It's not super useful, but I can go and click see logs. And here are the logs for like that occurred during that error.
Yeah. And this is so nice, because if you've added in a bit of logging to say, like, hey, I think this is related to coupon code or something, and go ahead and log the user's coupon code. Yes, you can report that up to New Relic as a custom metric with a custom call, but you could also just say, hey, I'm just logging this and I'm sending all of my logs up so I can look for a pattern later.
Yeah, and you can see, it's not just like for that one service we were looking at. It's for all of the services that this trace went during this error.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like, so we kind of have two different experiences here for logs in context, where one opens up in a new tab, like you just saw, and it has the query already there for you in the query bar there. And whereas we have another experience in like distributed tracing, I think it's distributed tracing, Rebecca, where it opens up in more of a modal, and everything's all in context for you, so you can easily go back to the distributed trace. And Do you have an example of that, Rebecca?
Let's see. Live.
I'm asking.
Yeah, so the cool thing about distributed tracing logs in context is like distributed traces can span multiple accounts. Like sometimes an entity is in one account and then a different entity is in another account, and they're all shown in the same distributed trace. And so the logs for the trace are also all shown, even if they're in different accounts, which is pretty cool. And yeah, so you can click see logs here, and you're still in the context of a distributed trace. So once you're done, you can just hit this X, and you'll be back in the trace. And it's a bit different of a view because of like the multi-account and because you're in context here. But if you want to go straight to the logging UI to do all of the same things you can do in the logging UI, you can hit query logs, and that will take you to the logging UI with the query pre-populated.
So I really love the fact that this is logs not just from a single entity or one server or one host, that this is logs from any of the entities that were touched in this transaction. So getting the error stack trace, you always hope that it had details you needed, but obviously we were very often stuck in a situation where that was just a clue and you had to sort of go on and maybe go in and edit code to find information. One of the things that I try to explain about the benefit of logs is that using it well, you have the ability to go out and ask questions about the past that you didn't know you would want the answer to. Yeah, that's sort of what logs are for anyway, right? But when you say, hey, how frequent is this kind of behavior, right? Like, how frequently is someone using 7 coupon codes on the e-commerce site, right? You can not only go and ask that question with integrated logs like you could if you search the logs manually, but you could chart that question, right? You could say, well, what's been the pattern over the last 2 months, and see an answer based on a log query, which is not a question you knew you were ever going to want to ask, right? You can just say, hey, I see this pattern in the logs, so I'll write a query for it.
Yeah, because all logs are NRDB events. And so anything that you can make a dashboard on currently, you can do the same with log data.
Yeah, this is a big differentiator, is that all that log information is a database event, just like any of the other events in New Relic. So it's like for, what do we call it? First class citizenship, right? Where, you can go in and grab that data just for one of your custom dashboards or for one of your other views, just like any other data that you have in New Relic. So I actually thought data partitioning was something about file storage, but it's not. It's about speaking of events, it's about defining an event type as a log line comes in. Let's take a look at data partitions.
Yeah, so data partitions really shine when you have a ton of data because, NRDB is not indexed. Everything is hot storage. And for that reason, it's super fast. But it also means that anytime you search on a log, you're searching every single thing that is a log event. So what data partition does is it just enables you to break things out into separate event types. And that way your queries can be a lot faster. So I'm not the right kind of user in this.
Oh yeah, so here we run into to demo this, but data partitioning is absolutely something that an administrator on your account should do. You shouldn't have somebody who's just looking at metrics, say I think that this should be these 5 event types. But on our demo account, because everybody uses our demo account, including people who are probably selling it right now to huge corporations, we don't get to just go in and do those administrative tasks. But that's the concept of data partitioning, that you can essentially pre-parse your data out of the separate types to make querying a lot easier.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's useful if you have different teams who are sending different types of logs. You can say this team's logs and that team's logs.
And would one partition log levels that way? Would you say hey, we get a bunch of info logs or debug logs and we want to separate those out?
Yeah, totally. I think on this account I do have admin permission.
I mean, reader, do not send us your debug logs. Don't do no, please love yourself, love us, love your billing department. Do not send us debug logs all the time. But
But yeah, I think you could do like error level, and you can have different also.
You can set like critical and error or something, right? You know, you can say, hey, I only want to search the critical log lines.
Yeah. So you can do like level equals error. And now, pay no attention to that.
I mean, this is what
over
happens.
here.
Query, like, we're not like querying data live, but we're like, you know, it's just whatever's being reported in the last, you know, hour, right? So, you know, our demo environment has outages and stuff that are intentional, but then there'd be data missing, which totally makes sense.
Yeah.
This is why, remember, as we were talking about in a previous episode, everyone, like, alert off of your ingest. Like, if you say, hey, you suddenly stopped ingesting data at all, set an alert on that. Like, go and see what might be going on if you stopped reporting data suddenly.
Yeah. So yeah,
actually, I haven't seen a use case like that, so it's really interesting to hear that, sorting partitions out by error.
And maybe don't do that. Like I was saying this, like think about whether or not you really need to send like info level logs all the time. Like ask yourself, and this is not like there's not an answer for everybody. You need to ask yourself, what exactly are you putting in info level logs, right? If you're putting in info level logs like receive request, creating response, and that's the whole log message, like you know, maybe that was good. Maybe you like notably you want to be turning off that logging entirely, right? Like you want to have a level of logging that's useful only when you're developing the product that is then turned off, right? But yeah, there may be a time when you have one or two log levels where you really make sense to be running them all in production, but you only want to see some of them. I sort of said it and I was like, maybe don't do that. But it is worth thinking. And then for sure, yeah, like it's from different users or it relates to different geos, or you know, many of us, when you're at a long-standing company that's big enough to have a good use for this, you know, fundamentally you might be several different products working together, right? Sometimes on the same host. So, you know, just kind of like, well, this is really a whole different code path. Let's just cut that out. You know, let's see those two things as separate.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, folks, I love this. I love seeing New Relic grow into new spaces, and I love seeing us respond to like user needs. But what else do we want to see about logs while we have all the people here?
We have patterns. We've talked about patterns, I think, before though. That was a month or two ago, I believe.
Yeah, we gotta be back to talk more pattern stuff, because there's this kind of fundamental thing of like talk about like capture the flag events or something where we want to let people really try to dig quickly into a problem, which we haven't talked about enough. And the big thing is like queries and pattern matching. We need to do just like a segment just on that with like the metric side and the log side, which we'll do soon.
Yeah.
So Rebecca, as we sort of start to close out the segment, do you have like a SoundCloud album coming out, or other you know, socials you want to drop? Do you want people to visit your Depot Pop? Do you have like vintage t-shirts that you have for sale that you'd like people to see? Pretty worn out, but you were thinking maybe $300. What else do you want to link people to?
So I don't have a SoundCloud, but I always want to talk to people about gardening. I can talk about plants forever. Actually, my mom has called me boring. Yeah, talking about gardening.
I love that. And you can find, I'm gonna you want me to drop a like Twitter link in the chat, or do you want to like, you really don't want to be bothered by people?
Yeah, drop a Twitter link. I have like no followers, so maybe I'll get a couple.
We'll put it in the YouTube show notes as well. And then Skyler, do you have like a YouTube channel where it's just you patching drywall until something really bad happens?
I wish I did. I've always wanted to say smash that subscribe button. I just never had
that. Nothing like giving you a video that's like, hey, will you please show me how to fix this carburetor, and be like, smash that subscribe button. Like,
yeah, right.
This is the beginning of a career of me fixing carburetors. So let's just go ahead and you give me the thing.
No, but we do check Twitter. I check Twitter occasionally for if people are tweeting about logs specifically to New Relic. So yeah, if anybody ever has any feedback or anything, open to the customer feedback channel that you see the icon in the upper right hand corner, or through any kind of social, and it'll get to us at some point or another. Usually this is the best way if you are a New Relic customer, but yeah, we probably check this within a few hours if we're working, and it's shared usually throughout the entire logging team, which is fun and scary at the same time.
So you heard it here, folks. I told you to send a support ticket, which is not really what you should do. So now you know it, to actually use the feedback thing, which, no surprise, we built in some time ago to the product. So use that. All right, folks, we're going to go to be right back. And thank you so much for coming out. There's going to be more if you're watching on the live stream. Watch it on the YouTube, go check the playlist and look for our other segments. Thank you so much.